Hello people! Welcome to another video, little or otherwise, in relation to something I heard on the radio yesterday. I was going to pump out a video as well as the Right to Remain Silent video that I did. And then this comes out, which is on the same theme of self-incrimination. Going to cover on a few areas here, covering on US Constitution, Magna Carta, ooh, the fear, and also going to bring that into privacy rights. So let's talk generally about privacy, and then I'll go through this story. So the long and short of this story is, couple who faked holiday sickness are jailed. So we'll read the blurb and you'll get the general idea, and then I'll go through the article. Pair claim that they fell ill twice in Mallorca, but Thomas Cook took out a landmark private prosecution after social media posts described happy times. So what the angle I'm looking at this from is usually like your diary, your journals, your letters, your confidential thoughts, whether they be committed to paper or not, or iPhone or tablet, they're usually considered your private thoughts, your private property, and usually they can't. Your own effects and property can't be used against you. Okay, so if I have a scrapbook at home where I write, "I hate everybody. I wish everybody jumped off a cliff." Oh, da 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 da. You know, if I wrote that in my book, and then someone says, "Oh, that guy's planning to kill people," and then the police come round and find this book, and they go, "Oh, look, evidence. See." You know, it's my own sickly existence that's, you know, I've used this little book to write down a load of nonsense. It's not necessarily evidence of any particular planning or plot that can be used against you, even though you might be incriminating yourself on paper. Because it's your own private property, it's not usually something that can be drawn upon to incriminate you. Like, you shouldn't testify against yourself in court. And in fact, when I've been to court, I've actually had judges interrupt police officers when they've said, "Oh, I smashed the window in on the car to get the keys," or something like that. You know, the judge goes, it's like, "Don't say that, please. I didn't hear that. Did you hear that? Anyone hear that? No, right, carry on." So you know, you're not supposed to testify against yourself or incriminate yourself. It's not up to you to do that. But in many cases nowadays, we do that, and especially in you know, when you're convicting yourself of a crime, guilty pleas. When you guilty pleas, yes please, not guilty plea. But when you make yourself guilty, or you confess to a crime, you're obviously saving the judiciary and the criminal justice system a lot of work. So obviously they're thankful for all that, and they'll throw the book at you with a 33% discount. Now, bringing that all back down to here, and your own information being used against you, it's something that kind of clicked in my head yesterday, is that things like Facebook and Twitter, they're your private documents or photos, thoughts, but you're uploading them into what is essentially a public domain. So you're taking you yourself, you are taking your private stuff, you're uploading it because you believe there's a benefit of doing so, and you're presenting it to the world on Twitter and Facebook, and now the whole world can see those documents, or at least your family and friends are. And I believe in a lot of the terms and conditions, I think these companies are now saying if you upload something to us, they become their pictures then, which is an interesting concept. So suddenly they have their own corporate interest in your pictures, and therefore they're claiming some sort of property rights over it, presumably. If that's what they believe, then that's what they believe. So that in this case was used in particular to gain a conviction. And Thomas Cook, Thomas Cook is long dead. He was alive in the Victorian times, where he created the Grand Tours, you know, going around Europe, setting up nice tourist attractions for rich aristocratic and noble and wealthy merchants to go around and have a grand tour around Europe, a bit of a jolly. So Thomas Cook is obviously dead many years ago, but the name lives on, incorporated. So the zombie Thomas Cook, the corporation is still living, if you like, to this day, or at least operating. So in this particular case, the people have surrendered their own personal effects. They've taken them out of the private and put them into the public. And based on that information, Thomas Cook has says, well, we can use their own evidence against them, which is now public, to prove to a court and a private prosecution. And they've gone for a criminal prosecution, a private criminal prosecution, not a civil prosecution, against these people in order to have the wrongdoing proved. And these people are now facing jail. They've been jailed. I think about 2 years in total. The lady's for like 8 months, I think, and the chap was for something like 15 months. So I'm just going to bring it back to some crucial bits of constitutional law, which kind of highlights what I've just said. Let's go to the Fourth Amendment, or the Constitution, Article the 4th, I believe it's supposed to be referred to as. The right of the people. Okay, let's go very slowly here because it's easy to overread this. So the right of the people, that's you and I, flesh and blood. Okay, to be secure in their persons. So again, coming back to my Rob S video, yes, you have every right to be whatever person you wish to be, okay? And you're going to be secure in that right to be a person. So if you wish to be a plumber, a builder, an actor, actress, writer, journalist, lawyer, mother, father, son, daughter, cousin, I don't know, job's worth, whatever you want to call yourself, you are secure to be that person's. See, it's the plural here. It's not you have one person, because person is Latin for persona. Persona is mask. So whatever mask you wear. So I wake up in the morning. I wake up as Mr. Grumpy. I don't have my breakfast. I feel a little bit better. I might be the person of man then. And then after my breakfast, I then put on my business attire, and I'm the person of work. I don't know, I'm an accountant, right? So now I've got my accountant's mask off, and then I have my lunch break. Oh, I'm back to being a man now because I've got my lunch break unpaid, so I go out and get some food because I'm flesh and blood, need food, otherwise I'm dying. And then I'm back to work, put my accountant's face back on. Oh, now I've got to go pick the kids up. I put my dad face back on now, my mask. And now I picked up my kids. While you were going to school, you might have been the parent mask went on. Oh, hello, parent. Yeah, hi there. Come to pick up your property, children, whatever they want to call them. And then you go home, and then your husband, let's say, you put on your husband mask, and then your wife comes home, which is obviously also a person of a woman. So you can see there's nothing scary about being a person. All right? I know Rob S is like, hey, I'm not a person. The person that you really don't want to be is the person that is being offered to you. Hello, sir, nice platter here. Would you like this legal person? Sir, just pick up that mask, sir. Please be this legal person. So it's up to you to pick up the mask and put it on, or you can leave the mask down there and say, well, I don't really know what a legal person is, does, or operates, or how that kind of works because I've not been legally trained. So yeah, that's where persons is really. I hope that clicks now in people's head. Persons is just a mask. It's just a character that you are being offered to act in that particular role at that particular time. And that harks back to Shakespeare. Was it life is but a stage? We all have our entrances and exits. Houses, okay, that's presumably your home, and more than one. No, these are all plurals. Papers, so this is your documents, and effects. Oh, effects. Let me just remind myself. Effects, goods and property. So there we are, goods and property. So pretty much that covers everything. To tell you the truth. Yeah. So. Effects, goods and property. So stuff you got lying around, all your stuff is you're secure. The right of the people to be secure. Let's look at secure. What are they actually talking about? Secure. To make safe. Ensure. Make certain. Seize and hold. Get possession. So they always should be in possession of whatever's theirs. That should never be seized or denied. Okay, so there we are. Papers and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Okay, unreasonable. unreasonable is a bit of a dodgy word, but there we go. It's a bit wishy-washy. It's like unnecessary, like necessary, unreasonable. Reason. Whose reason? If you got a despot in charge of your nation, some people might think Donald Trump's a despot, or they might think the guy in charge of the EU is a despot. What's his name? I don't know. Or maybe Putin. What he defines as reasonable or unreasonable will be completely different from, I don't know, some benevolent ruler like Nelson Mandela, let's just say. So there's going to be a lot of subjective, basically. And seizures shall not be violated. Shall, interesting, not be violated. And no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by an oath or affirmation. So someone has to put their neck on the line with i.e. the liability has to fall with someone. So someone has to swear, oath or affirmation, that there is probable cause that something has happened. Because obviously if your word turns out to be a load of nonsense, or your belief turns out to be incorrect or wrong or false, you have to bear the cost of that belief. And particularly describing the place. Yeah, so this is good in American, is that you, if someone's like, I don't know, some guy stole a load of TVs and they're storing it in their loft, right? So when you're getting a search warrant, the person who knows that information has to tell the magistrate or the judge, yeah, Dave, that guy's nicked a load of PCs or TVs, he's keeping them in his loft. Have to be very specific. So the warrant is to enter, go upstairs, and see TVs and computers in the loft. So they'll gain access to the loft. Now, if they go there and they find a load of strange things in the kitchen, they shouldn't have been in the kitchen. It's none of their business to be looking at that. They have to leave and then do another search warrant. So it's very protectionist in terms of the rights of the individual and the persons or things seized. Yes, so they've got to be described where it is and what it is. Okay, so that's very good. So that's just highlighting the fact that you're secure in your papers. Okay, papers, which is basically your thoughts on papers. Your private diaries. You might be pen pals with Mussolini or Hitler or Stalin, but just because you're talking about some things of that, it doesn't mean that they can just say, right, you'll go to prison because we don't like you. We don't like your friends. Now, going back to, and that obviously all harks back to our good friends at the Magna Carta. Now, I've looked through this. I've tried to find something a bit more concise, but I'm basically just fluffing it down to Article 39 of the, or point 39. There's no articles really. It's like, or sentence, if there's even sentences on Magna Carta. No free man. So this is kind of the only section that really has any kind of clout with the common folk. So no free man, see, it's not joined either, so no free man shall be seized or imprisoned or stripped of his rights or possessions, so goods and properties, or outlawed or exiled, so kicked out, which is an interesting one, or deprived of his standing in any way, which his standing is very, very good. Nor will we procure with force against him or send others to do so, except by lawful judgment of his equals. So, you have to have the judgment before any of this shit happens. Okay? To no one will we sell or deny or delay the right to justice. That's interesting. So, and then we come to this article here, which is also highlighting on the Magna Carta side of things. This is actually a legal book. Privacy Law, a Comprehensive Study. So I haven't got this book myself, I was just Googling around, but here it highlights something that people need to get into their heads, and I'm surprised to find it in a published book, but hey. It's easy to see when the barons of England wrung from King John at the point of a sword the concession that neither the lives nor their property should be disposed of by the crown. So basically, that's all it is. It's about a king, despot king, going around taking shit for his own benefit. So he's taking, hey, I'm king, you're my subject, you owe your allegiance to me, I need your castle, I'm going to sell it, make loads of money, and then going to raise an army, and we're going to go off and lose a battle in France. So that's like, whoa. Okay, lovely, but I know you're the king and all that. But I don't really agree with that, and 25 other barons don't agree with it either. Except as provided by the law of the land. So this is the law of the land. Now, Law of the land. Land and people, as Carl Lentz has mentioned, land and the people are one. The king acts at the people's pleasure. Okay, so this kind of relates to the law of the people, and meant by law of the land and ancient customs. So obviously, land doesn't have any customs; it's dirt and grass, it's soil. So they're talking about the people and the ancient customary law of the English peoples, or the laws enacted by Parliament, of which the barons were a controlling element. Okay, so the nobles are the controlling element of the Houses of Parliament. Okay, so all you lay people who think that, hey, let's go stand as an MP in Parliament, don't think that suddenly the barons have lost control of their house. I mean, they kicked out many of the hereditary House of Lords peers in the recent history, but that's obviously their own into strife or intermeddling. None of our concern. It was not in their minds, therefore, to protect themselves against the enactments of laws of Parliament of England by the law of the land. It is most clearly intended the general law, a law which hears before it condemns. That's a nice way of putting it. Which proceeds upon inquiry and renders judgment only after trial. The meaning is that every citizen here, I don't agree with that word, every citizen shall hold his life, liberty, property. So all the things that you've uploaded were your property, and you've uploaded them onto Twitter or Facebook, and you're kind of sharing it. You're diminishing your property to be like kind of like a you're giving it up to like a communal kind of information that can be shared amongst your fellow people, friends or otherwise, and immunities under protection of the general rule which governs society. Everything which may pass under the form of an enactment, so everything which passes as an enactment of government is not therefore to be considered the law of the people. If it were so, it would directly establish the union of all powers in the legislature. Yeah, exactly. There would be no general permanent law of courts to administrator for men to live under. The administration of justice would be an empty form, an idle ceremony. Oh man, that's so good. Anyway, so by all means, what page was that? Page 61 of this book. Have it, I don't know. It's on Google here, so if you want to read through it in your own time and your own detail, but kind of here we are, an official publication actually saying that the law of the land, the law of the people, the customs of trial by your equals, and a judgment has to be rendered before punishment given. That's essentially the law of the land, and as opposed to law of statute or legislation or parliament enactments, things like that. So it's nice just to have it in an officially published book, which is a nice little find. Now we'll go back to the article itself. So here we go. We go on holiday. We get food poisoning twice in one holiday, and we're coming back, and we're going to make an insurance claim. Now, I don't know anything about what was said at trial. This is obviously a news report. We'll go through it and we'll see what was said at trial. But because you've surrendered your property onto a public forum, which is Facebook or Twitter, you're essentially categorizing or making a diary or a journal for public viewing of what you're up to. Okay. And now, because you are surrendering that information, like I said in the Right to Remain Silent video, the two ladies were confessing everything to the journalist, because obviously journalists aren't the cops. They're not in uniform. They've not got guns. They're just there being nosy. But the very fact that they're confessing everything in such a way, I'm sure if they were a diligent journalist to say, police, I just spoke to this lady. Here's the tape. Just watch this at your own leisure. Maybe that might help you in court. I don't know. And there we go. So here you're kind of self-incriminating by surrendering up your private documents onto a public forum and allowing third parties, i.e. Thomas Cook, who, if they have any reason to doubt your word, then they're going to say, well, let's look at their Twitter thing. Oh, look, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. You're looking, you've got a good colour, you've got a good tan, you're smiling, glass of wine in hand. I mean, I don't know what was the case in this, but you can see if there's a theme. If you've got food poisoning and you're being bedridden, you're not going to be out drinking wine and having a lot of sun and happy times unless you've got a good constitution that can hack it. But then why would you be making an insurance claim that you've been, poisoned, essentially on holiday? I think I read something recently that Boris Johnson. I think, yeah, where did I read that about Boris Johnson saying that the digestive system of the British people seems to be very fragile at the moment. It was something like that, which I thought was quite a nice way of putting, like, these claims are getting a bit out of hand. It's like people, it's almost like I go on holiday and get a blank check to come back with because I've made these claims. But you got to be you've got to have some sort of moral compass, guys. If your word is your bond, it's been said many times that the only two things that you actually truly possess is your good name and your word. Okay, if people can trust your word, then you'll establish a good name, basically. So yeah, I know it's not really emphasised nowadays because there's all this like verbal contracts aren't worth the paper they're written on. That's right. If you know who you're dealing with, if you're going to do a verbal contract, it is just as valid. Actually, it's not an unenforceable contract. But if people have little regard to the things coming out of their God-given voice, if you like, your word is used to be the only way of making a contract. You would sometimes witness it in various ways, but essentially, you have to talk to your man and have a need and a want, and agree mutually on doing what you say you're going to do. So we've read that already. So a Liverpool couple have been jailed. So they've been to trial. I don't know. We'll find out if it was a jury here. It'd be very interesting. I think it did go into the criminal court. So this wasn't. I was thinking it would maybe they've gone into the civil courts, but they're actually quite ballsy and tried to prove fraud. Now I've heard that proving fraud is a bit tricky, but Thomas Cook has managed to go down the fraud route, and they've gone to the criminal side of the court, and they've managed to get, I think it was even 5 convictions on fraud, which is pretty amazing. False sickness claims after a holiday in Mallorca. The government has stepped up attempts to eliminate fake holiday sickness scams as a middle-aged British couple. See, they should know better. I mean, they're grown-ups, man. If you're an infantile or some sort of kid who's going on holiday and your mate's told you, and you're more suggestible, is basically what I'm saying. But I don't know, each to their own. Because what are their names? We'll find their names pretty soon. Oh, yeah, here they are. So here we are. Paul Roberts, for all time now, mate. You've diminished your own standing, and Deborah Britton. Here we are. You've not really done your name. Remember, this lasts forever. Long after you're dead, these records are held. So just think about that when you're doing your name that was given to you by your mum and dad, and now you brought that in there. So whoever, the Roberts family, the Roberts clan, the Roberts dynasty, whatever you want to call it, this guy Paul, who was named by his mother and father, has brought his whole family into shame, basically. And the same thing obviously goes for Deborah being an accomplice. So, they want to eliminate fake holiday sickness scams as a middle-aged British couple who had boasted on social media about having sun, laughter and fun on the holiday were jailed after making false insurance claims. Deborah Britton and her partner Paul Roberts tried to claim £20,000 compensation by stating that they had their 2 children fall ill on holiday in Mallorca in 2015 and 16. Liverpool Crown Court. Oh, right, so it's gone up to the higher jurisdiction Crown Court, was told. Britain, 53, I think it's a lady, sobbed as she was sentenced to 9 months in prison after admitting. Oh, she admitted it. All right, there we go. 4 counts of fraud in the private prosecution bought by the holiday company Thomas Cook. Robert, 43, was jailed for 15 months. The convicts. See, I don't know if they were married. Well, probably not married, but if they were married, the man could do the right thing and take the hit for the pair of them, yeah. Because that's the whole point of being a man, is that if you're married, for example, the wife is incompetent in a historical sense here, ladies, before the feminists start going up in arms. Right, so historically, the woman, and you can still claim this now. It's entirely up to you. So you can claim I'm a woman, I'm incompetent, and therefore the man would take the whole turn. So think about that, feminists. Is that a benefit to you? I think it is. I'm just a woman. I don't know what I do. Let the man take the whole hit. So instead of doing 15 months, why don't if you're a man, you say, look, I'm the man. I'm going to take it on the chin, leave my wife alone. So he'd get 15 months, and she had 9 months. So he would have the 28 months. Something like that. Let's not do maths. The convictions came on the same day that the government announced its calls for evidence from travel operators as part of a crackdown on holiday sickness frauds that have plagued holidays from firms operating in Spain. The Association of British Travel Agents said it welcomed the latest move in attempts to quash the fraud that has tarnished, exactly. So this one action has tarnished the British, well, I'd say the people who hail from Britain, or England, should we say. England, Britain is a legal fusion of the lands of England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, tarnished the British holidaymakers' reputation abroad. I mean, as if it's not low enough already with drunken hooliganism and nonsense, and now you don't look like the kind of people who would be up to this kind of nonsense. And costing Spanish hoteliers, because someone has to pay. You're not going to get 20 grand from nowhere. It comes from an insurance company. Insurance charges premiums, and essentially everyone has to pay for it anyway. The price of the holiday goes up next year for everyone because we're all paying out these silly bloody insurance claims. Let's start thinking about the consequences of our actions. The cost of spending, millions of pounds. God knows how many people are getting up to this stuff. I mean, this is just a 20 grand claim. So probably doesn't take that many to rack up millions of pounds. It's crucial that the government brings in new rules that control legal costs. See, this is all legally created issues on holiday sickness claims as soon as possible. And I'm not sure you're supposed to put a comma on an and, because and, I was always told, was a joining word. And we welcome the chance to be able to submit further evidence from our members to help crack down on these bogus claims. Yeah, absolutely. In June, ministers pledged action to try to halt the. In June, ministers pledged to try to halt the flood of spurious claims for food poisoning, which have risen by 500% since 2013. Partly fueled by organised claim touts, they have sparked an angry backlash from Spanish hoteliers and led to the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson to declare that the digestive system of the British people become the most delicate in the world. Liverpool Crown Court was told that the pair from Wolseley, Wirral, tried to claim nearly 20 grand for their fake gastric illness and would have cost the holiday firm a further 28 grand in legal fees. So let's just highlight. So 28 grand in legal fees, 28 grand in the actual compensation, plus all the costs associated with the insurance. So this is all legal. The insurance firms are very much in bed with the legal society. The legal society love a bit of the old insurance because obviously if there's blame, there's a claim, and you're going to need representation so they can charge legal fees. So 28 grand worth of legal fees for a 20 grand claim. That's the problem I have, is that how can it cost 50% more almost than the actual claim itself just to administrate that claim? This is the insanity of the legal system at the moment. Where really, I mean, proportionately, let's say they should actually self-administrate some sort of maximum price based on the claim. So if you're making a claim of 50 grand, the most in legal fees that are realistic, it's up to them to self-medicate how many billable hours they do. But there should be at least an enforced kind of bar. Let's say 10 grand. If legal fees go above half or 50% of the claim amount, that has to be justified to the court very scrutinised and justified to the court. And I think that would help a lot. That's a bit of self-medication, or the government can crack down and actually arbitrarily just enforce it. But hey, right, Judge David Albury, Queen's Counsel, said their claim had been a complete and utter sham. That's pretty base, simple words. Complete and utter sham. And also sham. Let's find out what sham is, because obviously sham is like common tongue. A trick, a hoax, a fraud of unknown origin, uncertain origin. The word burst into use in 1677, perhaps from sham, a northern dialect variant. 1670. A trick, a hoax, a fraud. Trick, a hoax, a fraud. They were bogus from start to finish. You were both asserting on your behalf and on behalf of your two children that on two separate holidays you had suffered illness. Well, of course, the parents, and mum and dad or whoever, are responsible for the kids' actions. So it's got nothing to do with the kids, really. They were totally and utterly fake, said Aubrey. That's the judge, is it? Judge David Aubrey. Yeah. He said, "Those who may be tempted, temptation, always a good word from the judiciary, in the future to make a dishonest, exactly, you're dishonest, you're dishonouring your whole family and clan, to make dishonest claim in relation to fake holiday sickness if they are investigated and brought to justice, whatever the circumstances of an individual," that's good, "he or she must expect to receive an immediate custodial sentence." Fraud is pretty important. Okay, now the reason fraud is an important crime to be punished is because essentially it's a breach of trust, and trust is my favourite element of the law, because pretty much everything you can put into the context of a trust. And I'll probably cover trust in another video, but essentially trust is a triangle. You have some sort of entity like property at the top, and then you have the trustee and the beneficiary. So someone owns the property at the top of the triangle, and then it's being administrated by the trustee under certain guidelines, and then the beneficiary is the beneficiary of the agreement, and that's essentially that. So after the holiday in June, Britain had written on social media, "Safely home after 2 weeks of sun, laughter and fun and tears. Met up with all our lovely excuse me, our friends who made our holiday fab. After a post after returning from holiday, a second holiday in 2016 read, 'Back home after a fantastic holiday. My favourite so far.'" Yeah, I mean, this food poisoning was less severe as my last food poisoning. Yeah, that last food poisoning was terrible, but this one, much more bearable. Interesting. But in August that year, they contacted David Norman's solicitors to make the claims. He'd gone to the solicitors. Okay, solicitors are part of the legal society, and many of the judges, conditions of being a judge is they have to know the legal society rules, because the legal society is one of the biggest societies in the UK. Let's use that word. So when you go to the biggest society that is based upon a noble honor-based system, and has, and most judges are members of that society or have been members of that society at some point in their education through becoming like a solicitor, a barrister, and then possibly a judge or a master. So you're essentially going to mates of the judge to report this claim, to make the claims. An intimated letter of claim, which was read to the courts, said our client's holiday was ruined due to their symptoms, as they were ill for the entire remainder of the trip. They were unable to enjoy the holiday. So there we are. So they're making a contradictory statement to what they put on social media. So their postcards, their public. Well, a postcard would be private because it's to you, to someone else. But when you upload to a public forum like social media, hence social, you're giving it to the society. The society as a general, as a whole. Hey, look at us, we're so hip. We're on holiday. Selfie. Sam Brown, prosecuting, says both defendants knew that in issuing this claim, he or she would be lying in order. This is good. In order to support it. Britain was later contacted by a travel rep from the hotel who asked about the claim. In a message, the mother of four told her the claims were due to Paul and his dodgy dealings. What on earth? In a message, the mother of four told her the claims were due to Paul. With his dodgy dealings. What the hell? Well done, W mating. Partners in crime? No, was it no honour among thieves? Charles Lander, defending Roberts, said it was an idea the defendant formed from speaking to others in the pub. He stupidly believed those others who told him he wouldn't be detected. How wrong he was. Oh, they told me to do it. Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson says these claims make it more expensive for Brits to go abroad. I'll come back to, I've made that point already. Just we end up paying for the hoteliers end up having to pay higher premiums, legal costs, insurance goes up, and then we all end up paying. And the only people who really benefit is the legal society. So well done. They should not have to shoulder the inevitable rising costs of bogus accusations made by a small minority. The recent rise in false claims against tour operators, partly fueled by the unscrupulous touts, tarnishes the UK's reputation overseas. It is also hugely unfair to those who generally do become ill, exactly, who risk becoming victims of unjustified suspicion. This is the first step in fighting the scam holiday claim epidemic. Following the hearing, the Thomas Cook statement says the census handed down today demonstrate how serious the issue of fraudulent illness claims has become. This is a particularly sobering case, but reflects what is going on across the UK travel industry. So we had to take a stand to protect our holidays and our customers from the minority who cheat the system. Absolutely. Don't lie. Don't tell fibs. And the fact that you pleaded guilty to it and almost confessed halfway through, I mean, it's kind of like the two ladies I didn't the right to remain silent. You know, it was an easy crime, so we're going to do it. This is an easy opportunity to make some cash at others' expenses, which is essentially everyone who goes on holiday to Spain who has to buy travel insurance, has to book hotels. All these things are interconnected with insurance premiums because, you know, if things do generally go wrong, like there's a fire in the hotel, something actually serious, you know, people need to be compensated for the loss of property, or worse. So there we go. Be careful using social media because you're essentially giving over you're giving up your privacy to be hip, happening, cool, and selfie, and you know, bearing your high status lifestyle on the internet. Possibly to the detriment of your own privacy.